Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Home Tech Podcast. Jason Griffin here. So happy to have you with us. I am joined, as always, by my partner, Seth Johnson. Seth, how's it going?
Good, man. How are you doing? We're live.
I'm doing well. We are. It's exciting. We took a little bit of doing there, but you got it set up and working. We're doing a little beta test here, I would say, of our new live podcast, which we look forward to expanding out to more people. But we got a couple of our diehard fans from the hub here joining us for some testing this week and also in our live chat room. So a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to doing that. I think it'll be a great way to add a new twist to the podcast, and hopefully we'll have a nice engaged community with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like we're already having some conversation going on, and both in our Slack channel and when this does go live, when we do have it kick off live, there is a chat that will be on the website at HomeTech.fm/live. So you'll be able to go in there, even if you aren't a patron, and chat and interact with us. Hopefully that I get that working. Audio works. Next up is chat, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we'll keep working on it. Seth, you mentioned there quickly our patron page, and if anybody's listening who's not familiar with that, probably a good time to plug that really quickly. If you're a fan of the show and you find what we do here entertaining or informative, we'd love to have you as a supporter, and a great way that you can learn more about that is by visiting HomeTech.fm/support, and that'll give you some information on our Patreon page, which is a way that you can financially support the show. You can do that for as little as $1 a month, and actually this new live podcast that we're doing, and in addition to our chat room as well, are a result of the fact that we've hit some of our first funding goal with Patreon. So we're really pleased to announce that and to have everybody who's come on board. We really, really appreciate it. So if you're, again, a fan of the show and you want to learn more about that, head on over to HomeTech.fm/support.
Yep, and it's because of our patrons and our supporters of the show that we're doing this. This is our first goal, was to get this up and going, and just want to extend a very big thank you very much to our patrons out there for making this happen. This has been a little while coming, but we're here now, and we're doing this. So here we go.
Absolutely. Well, if you're listening and you're tuning into this week's episode to hear our interview with Richard Berry, which we teased last week, Richard actually emailed this morning, and it sounds like he's come down with a pretty bad cold, which I totally understand. I've been fighting quite a bit of that this season myself, and so we have rescheduled that, and are going to reschedule that, I should say, and we'll be keeping our audience posted on that. I think that'll be a really fun conversation. Richard's with iHummingbird, and they've got a very unique approach to the smart home and a really interesting business model that I look forward to exploring with him. But plenty of news stories surfaced this week, Seth, so it's just you and me, and we're going to kick around a few of those.
Very cool. Yep, absolutely. And so the first thing that's going to happen this week is the Super Bowl is this weekend. Jason, what will you be doing for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so this is a good time to announce. Actually, I had intended to announce this, I think, a little bit sooner, but it just kept slipping off the radar. I will actually be attending ISE over in Amsterdam this year. I'm super excited to say it'll be my first time going out to the show, and really excited for that. And just a bit of poor planning on my part, I guess, when I booked the ticket. I didn't actually realize that I was going to be on a plane flying overseas during the Super Bowl, which for those of you who have listened to the show regularly, that may come as a surprise. I'm a very big football fan, but we were joking before the show here tonight that I guess in a way it's a good thing that my Denver Broncos didn't have such a great season, because I may have had to reschedule a flight or two.
I think the bigger story is Jason Griffin missing the Super Bowl for ISE. That's
that should tell you something.
Yeah. So
yeah,
very cool.
Exactly.
So you're warming up for ISE, right?
Yeah. No, I'm really excited, and we have a lot of cool things planned for that. So definitely be sure to stay tuned. We'll be covering the show. I think we're going to try to get an episode out next week. Just trying to make schedules line up with the time zone difference there. But Seth, I think you and I'll be able to work that out, and so we'll do what we've done with CEDIA in years past, which is to do sort of a midweek show where I talk about some of the things I'm seeing out there, and then of course I'll be doing interviews and getting sound bites and taking a whole bunch of notes as I walk around the floor. And when I get back, we'll do our big ISE wrap up. So a lot of fun. I'm super, super excited to go out there.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, can't wait to hear from you when you get over there. It sounds like it's going to be a fun time, and I think we've got to mention that we've got sponsors for this. This is kind of something that just came out of the blue, and you were free. I was not.
Yeah. Yep.
So we would like to go ahead and thank. I guess it's Krika is one of them.
Krika, yep, Krika and ZPD, and ZPD is a media server company. If you're not familiar, and Krika, I'm assuming most of our listeners have probably heard us allude to them. They're an RSM, or remote systems management vendor, and they're kind of our co-platinum sponsors to get me over there. They were kind enough to make the offer and fund the trip, and we really appreciate them, the generosity to do that and make that opportunity a reality. So once again, that's Krika and ZPD, and we'll be talking a lot more about them during our ISE coverage, but we just wanted to give them a quick nod right now.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much. It's going to make for an interesting angle to the show, and you're going to get to try some of those monkey nuts Chris Gamble was talking about.
That's right. I've got that on my calendar, and in the gosh, my schedule really is filling up. It's going to be a very busy week, but thankfully I get to go out there for the whole week. I land there on Monday, and I'm there all the way through Saturday, so I'll have a good deal of time there to explore and cover a lot be pretty cool.
Very cool. Well, as you're there, you'll be leaving here this week after the HDBaseT apocalypse that has happened.
That's right. Big story. Yeah, let's jump in and get started, because we've got a bunch of these stories to cover, and this is a big one that really Twitter maelstrom going on the last couple of days. Tons of notifications, and Seth, I got to give you credit. I think you were kind of the one who brought this to the attention of I would say the industry at large. It's now been put out by Julie over in CE Pro, who of course we give a nod to very often. But Seth, you got the scoop on this one, so tell us about it.
I don't know if I want to take too much credit for it, but I did come across a forum post which I tweeted out, and it basically said that Samsung has been updating their TVs. You know, these new internet TVs with their fancy apps and widgets installed on them get updated from time to time. And the software update version 1160 has been pushed out from Samsung and been causing some compatibility issues with HDBaseT, reportedly. Been causing some HD compatibility issues with some HDBaseT chipsets. This turns out, I may have jumped the gun on this. I think a lot of people may have jumped the gun on this. But what's cool is I was able to sit down with Chris Bender of HD Anywhere, somebody who is intimately familiar with HDMI and HDBaseT, and talk to him about what exactly happened.
Yeah, I think that's great, Seth, that you were able to sit down with him and make that happen kind of at the last second. We're going to share that interview towards the end of our episode. Not really a full-length interview like we typically do, but you were able to chat with him for, I don't know, I think about 10 or 15 minutes and get his take on the issue. And like you said, I think this has sort of settled to be maybe a little bit more of a limited issue than it appeared at first. I know of at least one person in my office who will be very excited to hear that when I saw all these Twitter notifications flying around and got a taste for what that story was about. I quickly sent out an email to everyone on our team and said, hey, be aware of this. If you get a service call related to any sort of HDMI issue, probably the first question we should be asking is, is it a Samsung TV? And then checking the software version. And one of our techs at the company happens to be on call this weekend was pretty fired up because he says, God, this is like the busiest TV weekend of the year, literally, and this has to happen, and I'm on call. And so I know he'll be pretty happy to hear that I guess this appears to be a little bit more limited in scope than we thought at first, thankfully.
Yeah, definitely. It's much more limited and looks to be limited to the UK. Control4 actually piped up on their forums and has said that they've been talking to Samsung. They believe it's only impacting TV models in the UK, which is what Chris said in the interview. And they're fully aware of the issue and working on a resolution. So hopefully...
It's strange. Do they push out like different... I guess they do, right? They would have to push out different versions of firmware in different countries, I guess. Maybe the apps
Yeah.
are different. I don't know. That's interesting. I'm wondering why that would be.
I don't know. That would be well, I'm sure the apps and content that come in on the firmware would be different. I mean, it's just a software version. It's not really firmware related. But
Sure.
so yeah, if you have been affected, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen this week, right, in the States. That's why I kind of sounded the alarm. as bad as a job I think I did doing it. At least people know. But I'm hoping that most integrators won't be impacted by this simply because we're not turning on auto update, right? Like especially on a video distribution system, it doesn't make very much sense to use any of the auto update features. You just need a screen, you need a monitor, and that's it.
Yeah. And Greg Scott in our chat room here is mentioning localization. Greg's one of our listeners from Canada. Thanks for tuning in, Greg. And so I'm assuming that one word there is referring to our conversation about why software versions would be different on TVs in different countries and continents. So that makes a lot of sense. And so thankfully it's, like I said, appears to be a little bit more limited in scope than we thought, but we'll certainly keep an eye on it. And if we hear any updates, we'll put those out on our Twitter page at HomeTech Podcast and certainly give updates potentially in the show next week if there's anything relevant. But let's move on here. Another big story in the home technology dealer channel, CEDIA selling off the ownership of their annual trade show. Now, this on the surface appeared to look very odd, but when I dive in and read the story, I think it really makes sense. It's just a logistical challenge for the company who, has a lot of balls in the air and is trying to deal with a lot of things at any given time. And Vin Bruno, the head of CEDIA over there, made a comment that he would lose his marketing team essentially for 9 months while they were working on the show, and now they're going to be free from doing that heavy lifting and being able to focus on things that the organization perceives as maybe more of their core function. So I think it makes sense, but it certainly was one of those jarring headlines that you see and have to click in and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I actually have a background in this. Some of my first jobs were related to big shows like this. So one of the larger one that I was part of was about 100,000 people that came in for an arts advocacy show. And it wasn't 100,000 that came to the conference itself, but 100,000 people came to the area in support of basically concerts that the kids are putting on and that kind of thing. So I was actually more surprised that CEDIA handled all this stuff internally because, like he said, he would lose his entire marketing team for 9 months. We had at least 3 people working on our conference for 12 months, and the day after we got back, we got 1 day off, and then the next day we started working on the next year. So this is a lot of work to be going into, a lot of paychecks basically to be going into doing this. It's very, very difficult to do. And every time I've been to CEDIA, I mean, the registration process, everything looks like it's done extremely well. So who the people they had doing it must have been doing a pretty good job. But I was actually more shocked that a bigger company wasn't taking over the show floor management and that kind of thing. They were doing all that in-house. And I think this just frees up CEDIA to do what CEDIA should be doing. And that's right. That's getting involved with integrators and getting involved with manufacturers and making sure that the marketplace is educated and headed the right direction. And I really think that's going to be what we see out of this.
Yeah, and just focusing on aligning our industry with current trends in the market, and there's a lot of work involved with that. So I definitely agree. I think the move makes sense, and we'll just hope that the CEDIA trade show doesn't take a hit in quality. I don't suspect it will. I have no reason to believe that it would as a result of this, but it's always a great show that I really look forward to attending, and hopefully it's well taken care of in the future. Speaking of CEDIA, big story last year, of course, Crestron not being there, and a lot of the speculation that ensued from that and the ongoing debates that Seth, you and I have had numerous times on the show about whether or not Crestron is committed to the residential channel, or even if they're committed, whether or not their go-to-market strategy moving forward continues to make sense. A big story this week that CE Pro got the scoop on is that Crestron's revenues have been revealed, and this is one of those things that I guess is big news just in the sense that Crestron is a privately held company, unlike Control4, where we get quarterly financial reports to look at. We've, to my knowledge, never really been privy to that information. So big number, it looks like. Top line here, brief interview with Bloomberg. Crestron, a $1.5 billion company, billion with a B. And that impressed me. I would not have guessed that they were a $1 billion company. Now, the thing that brings this back specifically to HomeTech is looks like about 200 million of that business can be attributed to high-end luxury residential installations. So a small fraction of their overall revenue, clearly, but 200 million, still a substantial number and nothing to sneeze at. So what are your thoughts here, Seth?
Well, this is in line with what we've been hearing for years, that the residential marketplace for Crestron was only about 20%, or we always heard less than 20% of their business. And 200 million is, I think, 13% or so of 1.5 billion.
Yep. Yeah.
That's even less than the 20% that we've always heard. Crestron is doing a lot of really cool stuff to help out the custom integrator market recently. They've got the Ping product out there. They've got new software that I saw come through. We didn't cover it last week. I think it was about the same time as the Savant Roadshow. We had a bunch of stuff to talk about there. But they released some new software that made it easier to program and set up Crestron systems. So, I mean, they really have to, I don't want to say this, Control4 down their systems to make their product available in more of the market. I mean, Control4 has definitely taken the number one spot in the CEDIA business space. You can look at the CE Pro Top 100 and see that Control4 is just about there in every single business. And on here it says that the 200 million, that is pretty much equal to all the revenues that Control4, they say, is another leader in home automation, but it's equal to what Control4 reports on their quarterly earnings, or their yearly earnings. So, I'd like to see more out of Crestron. Hopefully, one of these days I'll get some more training on them and know a little bit more about them. But I'm really excited to what I'm seeing about what they're doing with like the Ping product and their new software. That stuff looks pretty cool. And as always with Crestron, it's that product. Like, you have an answer, and the answer is yes, you can do it. It's just going to cost you money, but you can do it. You never have to kind of walk back your promises with the Crestron system, which is always good.
Very true. Yep. Well, it'll certainly be topic we'll continue to monitor. John Clancy came on board around that time, where there was a lot of that speculation going on about what Crestron was doing, and I think he's really, from everything we can read in the media and surmise from that, he seems to be the champion of residential and is really, pulling them in that direction, at least internally, for that division of the company, and trying to continue to stay relevant there. And obviously, with revenues for the company overall being so high, they're a very healthy, well, we can assume at least a healthy company, and so my guess is not going anywhere anytime soon. I just thought this was an interesting story. But let's move on. Speaking of large companies, we had a big hiring story in the smart home, or presumably related to the smart home, I should say, in Apple's hire of Greg Duffy. Now, if that name is not familiar to you, Greg Duffy was the founder of Dropcam, and Dropcam was acquired, of course, by Nest. And there was a very high-profile falling out between Greg Duffy and Nest when he left that company, and we won't go into that whole topic. That's another one that we spent a ton of time talking about when that was all developing. But he has been hired by Apple, and there's only speculation right now. There's no public real news about what this hire means or what exactly he's going to be working on. But I think it's a pretty safe assumption that it'll be something related to HomeKit and Apple's smart home initiative. And so I'm really excited to see what that means. I think Dropcam is a great product. I was actually sad to see it sort of go by the wayside after being acquired by Nest. I thought they were doing some really cool things. They had, I think they were called the tabs that they were developing when Nest acquired them. And I just liked the direction that company was headed in. I've got a couple drop cams at home that I love. And so I think he's clearly a visionary guy, and I'll be anxious to see what he's able to produce with the backing and resources of a company like Apple.
Yeah, and well, we'll see what happens. There's some decent speculation on what he could bring to the table for Apple over on the Yahoo Finance article that we'll put in the show notes at over at HomeTech.fm/146. I thought a couple of these were pretty interesting. Help make HomeKit more appealing to device makers. That's a pretty big thing, because all the articles you read about HomeKit are that Apple is kind of stringent on what it allows to basically hit the marketplace, how the devices are made, who the manufacturers that make the devices are. I actually saw one story that came through that I thought was kind of shocking. I'll have to dig it up and find a link to it and put it in the show notes. But it was one manufacturer saying, Apple found bugs in our hardware that we didn't even know existed. So say what you will about, Apple having that stringent process, it does lead, it can lead to having a better platform, for HomeKit. So that could be interesting for him to do. And then he may also help the company launch the Echo and Google Home competitor, which is, Siri in a can. We've been talking about for a very long time, and maybe we'll see that. I'm not sure, but he has that background in how to make a product that is both appealing to a broad market and works extremely well. And I think Apple's a pretty good place for him to land.
Oh, yeah, without question. And I was just happy to see you get in our weekly Siri in a can reference. We've got to make sure we stay on top of that, Seth. I think you need to make sure you've got that trademarked or something, because we're all waiting for it, and I think we know it's coming. So, yeah, I think those are all interesting and certainly very realistic possibilities. And like I said, I'll be excited to keep an eye on that and see what develops. But moving on here, we've got a few stories actually we're gonna touch on quickly in what is also becoming, I would say, almost a weekly topic of conversation here, and that is cybersecurity in the smart home. And a huge topic here that we spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about, and I think one that's going to continually become important more and more for consumers and home technology professionals alike. I think that the big one here that we want to start on is a follow-up to a piece show that we did recently with Rom over at Securify, and they put out their new cybersecurity IoT service on their Almond 3 routers, and that service is actually now available. So I think we mentioned this during our interview, but at the time it was still rolling it out, and that service now has gone live. But the bigger thing that we want to point people to, and again, this will be in our show notes at HomeTech.fm/146, but a really interesting blog post that they put together. Apparently they were getting a lot of questions about, well, how do you test this sort of thing, and how is this vetted? How do we know this really works? And so the article is very long, and we're not going to jump into it here, but I would say anybody who's interested in understanding security threats in the smart home and how these vulnerabilities come to light and how they can be prevented, this is a really great read. So I'd encourage you to go check that out.
Yeah, there is a lot of good information there. Some of which that Rom covered in the interview. But some of it's like a deep dive into networking and what they do to scan for these vulnerabilities. This is a pretty good article. So yeah, I'd definitely put that in the show notes. Who needs one of these Securify routers? Netgear.
That's funny.
So Netgear, there is an exploit found in 31 models of their routers that lets hackers turn your router into a botnet. Great. Now the router that you get from Best Buy, Target, can be turned into a botnet, probably without you even knowing. They have reported the security hole to the National Vulnerability Data. Why am I having trouble saying that word tonight? Vulnerability Database. Netgear has confirmed the flaw in a post and released a full list of the affected models, which they're just absolutely a ton of them, quite a bit of them. So
yeah,
if you have
one thing that go ahead.
I was going to say, if you have one of these, you probably want to get over to Netgear's website and update your firmware as soon as possible.
Yeah. The one thing that I think they kind of buried in the article, and I don't think it was intentional or malicious. I do feel like these headlines get a lot of attention and clicks, and of course the people writing them are that's good for them, and I understand that. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I feel like this was a little bit buried. Not to dismiss the seriousness of this story. However, it is important to note the vulnerability could only be used to attack a router remotely if a remote administration setting was turned to on, and by default that setting is off. So I think the scale of this kind of goes back to the HDBaseT story, and on the surface this might appear to be this rampant issue that everybody should be running scared from or digging into and figuring out. But this is something that I think anyone with a Netgear router should look at, but understand that for the vast majority of people who haven't gone in and deliberately turned that remote management setting to on, then this vulnerability would require somebody to have physical access to your router, to be in your home, which of course is pretty unlikely. So I think that is worth noting here. But the third story that we wanted to touch on in our little security mini segment here is I think a new product. I didn't really dig and see how new this was. It was an electronic house piece about a piece called Dojo by Bulgard Systems, and it's an interesting consumer-looking device that $199 looks like the price point on this thing, and it goes on the network essentially and monitors for these sort of security threats. The form factor is kind of interesting. It looks almost like a little river rock or pebble that you put out in the house somewhere visible, and then my understanding is it's got like a wireless base station that I would assume hardwires into the Ethernet, and that little visible piece that is meant to maybe be put on your desk or whatever has some LED lights on the top that blink different colors, and red of course indicates that it's detected some sort of a problem or security threat on your network. So I think that's kind of an interesting idea. It does of course have an app that accompanies it and presumably sends you notifications if it's finding something wrong. But I just think that these stories to me represent probably what we're going to see as a growing category along with services like Securify. I should mention that this article does reference that $199 price point includes 12 months of service. I didn't see in this article what that service is going to cost after that 12 months, but it will be, looks like a subscription-based thing, as is Securify. So I think we're going to continue to see more of that, and I think these products are filling an important void or segment of the market that's a growing concern for a lot of consumers.
Yeah, this is a decent pushback on the security threats that we've been seeing, and definitely Securify is the one of the first, if not the first, to put this type of product inside of a router. I think at CES, Norton Antivirus announced that they were going to be selling routers that kind of did something similar. But having these little security devices, I mean, this is something I think most people should have in their home, because it's these products that we install in our houses or have other people install for us. Who knows if they've been infected? Who knows if they are on the latest firmware? I have one of those Vera, I think it's a Vera Lite or something like that, in my house, and I was on it today, kind of messing around, and noticed that the firmware needed to be updated. It's like, okay, well, I'll update the firmware on this, but who knows how long that has been sitting there like that?
Right.
Not like it tells me. It's just a little green box that sits over there and does its thing. So, yeah, I really like this push. I don't know how many people are going to, we kind of get this. We talk about this from time to time. The monthly bill fatigue. I don't know how big of success we're going to see out of yet another thing to be charged monthly for or whatever. I especially something that comes down. I think this one's important though. I mean, something like security of your house and security of it kind of falls in the same line. If you prevent your computer from being hacked and from a phishing attack or something like that, something that could have gone on, or you prevent one of these stupid botnets from being set up at your house that take down the internet on Fridays, I think it's a good thing. So overall, I'm hoping to see more of these devices come to market and an interesting marketplace develop over time.
Yeah. No, you make some great points about monthly billing and fatigue on that, but I agree with you. I think these sort of security services, just like monthly monitoring on your home, window contacts, door contacts, very popular, and something that a lot of consumers, I think, are already sort of conditioned to pay for. So I suspect that we'll see success, if not with this exact product, at least with this category of cybersecurity monitoring type of services in the smart home. That'll be an interesting space to watch. But let's move on here. We've got one last category here of a few stories we're going to talk about, and that really ties back to the future of TV and streaming apps, and the death of slow demise, I should say, of linear programming and regular cable. Although I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. We're certainly seeing a lot of movement on it. And one of the big stories that we talked about a number of times, I think going back maybe 5 or 6 months, maybe a little more, was a set-top box reform that was trying to get pushed through Congress. I forget the exact term for it. It wasn't quite a bill, but a proposal to legislate or something along those lines. So in any event, I forget what the actual reform was called, but it was being pushed by the FCC chair, Tom Wheeler, and the idea was basically to legislate where cable companies would be forced to adopt open standards that would, in theory, at least make it easier for third-party app developers to build their own set-top boxes. And the idea behind that, of course, was good, and I think well-intentioned. There was some healthy debate, in my opinion, about whether or not that was the right approach or if that was really actually needed, because the market is already sort of moving in that direction without legislation to force that. There was some actual pushback I thought was interesting from minority groups who were had programming that they felt would have been threatened because they're very, I would say, dependent upon the bundled model of cable providers. So there was a lot, point being, there was a lot of interesting wrinkles to that story, and of course a lot of interested parties. But it looks like the new Republican government has essentially killed whatever hope remained of this particular bill being passed through. So without getting too into politics here on the Home Tech Show, which we of course try to avoid, I do think this is a development that's worth paying attention to, and we'll see how what sort of effect this has on the set-top box evolution and market moving forward.
Yeah, what will happen to my cable card, huh? I mean, cable card needed to die like 5 years ago, and it's probably going to be around for quite a bit longer. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. Greg Scott over in the chat is actually saying that up in Canada, they're adopting Android boxes to replace them. And I think that's probably smart too. Like it's we're not going to see these cable boxes very much longer. Everything is going to move over to streaming, and you're not going to have to deal with cable cards anymore. I wonder what's going to happen with like TiVo and companies like that have. I love my TiVo. Like, listen, it's the best way to watch live TV and recorded live TV. But I mean, we've really done a deep dive into Netflix and streaming and all that good stuff. I can't say our TiVo died the other week, and I didn't even notice. Like the HDMI went out on it. So like I fired it up one day, and I've had to RMA it right before the Super Bowl because there is stuff that comes on live that we want to see. But it had to, I'm waiting for it to. It should be here Friday, so at least one of the two of us will be able to watch the Super Bowl this weekend. We'll pins and needles.
Rub it in, Seth. Yeah. So while you were talking there, I looked it up. It's Unlock the Box. Unlock the Box is the reform that they were trying to put out, and so there was a lot of dialogue about that on social media. And if you're interested in learning more about the history of that, you can take a look there. Seth, you mentioned where this is all headed, and this next story here we wanted to touch on, I think, is at least a glimpse at it. Comcast has a Xfinity TV app that they have officially begun beta testing on Roku devices, and So this is a great example of the market, I think, heading in that direction where Comcast and Roku are partnering up. And if you have a Roku box and a Comcast account, there you go. You don't have to use Comcast set-top box. So certainly, I would imagine some technical challenges, nothing that couldn't easily be overcome by somebody who was inclined to that sort of thing. But for the average consumer,
live streaming is easy, let me tell you.
Yeah. I can tell you one thing. If it was me setting up the live stream, it would have never happened. So my hat's off to you.
Yeah, with just a little technical difficulties that lasted for about 30 minutes before the show here.
Right. But no, my point there being that still for the average consumer, maybe the spouse in the home of people who listen to this show, the spouse or the partner, that they may be the person that still just struggles to wrap their brain around this in the traditional cable box. I think for that reason, that's probably the majority of people. For that reason, the cable box is going to stick around for a while. But I think this, like I said, is an interesting glimpse at where this is all heading. I firmly believe that the future of TV is really in apps, but it's just a question of how long is that going to take? Right.
Now, this is where things are going. So it's only going to be a matter of time. If Comcast is coming out with their app, putting it on Roku, I mean, I wonder how long it's going to take to show up on Apple TVs or I guess the Amazon Fire TV thing. I mean, it's only a matter of time before it starts getting pushed around where it's as ubiquitous as, say, the Netflix app, which, I mean, geez, is on just about everything. I mean, I remember that being on the Wii for for what it was worth. So yeah, this is where things are going, and hopefully we'll be there sooner rather than later, because these cable card things are just ridiculous. So they've got to go.
Yeah. Yep. Well, speaking of apps, Facebook reportedly making an app for set-top TV boxes. I don't know what to make of this one, Seth.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of like speculation. Facebook's been doing like this streaming thing. I'm pretty sure you've probably seen like people going live or whatever on their
Facebook Live.
Yeah. They've been making a decent push into like a Facebook TV market. So there could be some kind of play going on there in the future. I'm not sure exactly. I really don't like to follow Facebook very much, so I kind of ignore them most of the time. But it would be interesting for them to have an app right on your set-top box that you can go into and kind of, basically see, like, it would be the equivalent of having YouTube videos, which, all the YouTube content creators would be kind of upset because generally what happens is they'll upload a video to YouTube and somebody will take it and copy it and paste it over on Facebook, and then they'll get all the ad revenues. So I'm sure they're going to have to figure out how to stop that from happening. But
well, and content seems to be the big question in this story. And certainly the first thing I thought of when I read it is, well, most of what I see on Facebook is little 5-second random clips that are, supposed to make me laugh, or like you said, the Facebook Live thing is getting more and more popular. But, the end game for them obviously is going to be trying to sell advertising against this programming. And I don't think advertisers are necessarily going to want to pay to advertise on someone's random Facebook live stream. So this is clearly something that they're going to have to engage with, I would think, partners, content development partners, and that sort of thing. So I think that'll be the facet of this story to really pay attention to. Is it's pretty easy to build a streaming app these days and get it on a bunch of platforms if you've got the kind of money and resources of Facebook. But what's the content, right?
Yeah. There's going to have to be something I want to watch on it, right? It has to be something interesting and enough for me to fire up the Facebook app and connect to it on my TV and all that stuff, and watch. I mean, that's really all there is. So I have no doubt that they'll find content to put on there and start doing it. So hopefully we'll see something cool come out of it, and it'll be just another app on your Apple TV or
that'll be the challenge. There's so many of them now, and so like I said, I think that'll be the facet of the story to watch here. We've got one last show, light. We're going to end on a light note here, and not a lot to say about this, but another one we want to point people to, HomeTech.fm/146. And you got to go click on this. I thought it was a hilarious story. Seth, you and I both bookmarked it around the same time and threw it up in our show notes to talk about. And it's a review of my new Samsung Curved TV. I hate it so much. And I think regular listeners to the show know how you and I feel about curved TVs. And I literally, there were a couple lines in here that made me laugh out loud.
Yeah. What's funny is this is one of the editors there at The Verge, Nilay Patel. It's his wife that actually did the review. So this is her writing,
which is great.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, I like the lines on here. I bought the prettiest one. He said, again, those were the words uttered by my in-house technology expert who quit his job as a lawyer for a new career writing technology reviews. Oh man, this thing is beautiful. It's something you have to read and for yourself.
So yeah, I am just sort of wondering how many more CESs will go by before we don't see any more curved TVs. We saw the death of 3D TV recently, and it's taking its last gasps right now. And I suspect maybe 2 more CESs. So maybe we've got, let's see, CES 2018 and 2019. So I'm going to go on record right now as saying CES 2020, 0 curved TVs.
Oh man, this is a big like over under thing. We should get something on this. This is it's a pretty good bet to be taking. I don't know. I think we may see him go away this next year.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think there's no. I mean, 3D's gone. There's really no reason for these things to be around. I mean, listen, if you want a flat screen TV, you don't buy a curved screen TV. So
fair point. Fair point.
Yeah, I've never understood these. They've always been clearly a marketing gimmick, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people pick them up thinking that they're going to be great. And for sure, this review or this article is probably the best thing that you can read before you go buy a curved TV.
Yeah. Yep. Want to send one more thank you over to our supporters in the hub, and a good place to close on this. Actually, Joey Kolchinsky, listener to the show, makes a great point about this particular article and just how I think as consumer technology and home technology become more and more prevalent in the home, or we're probably going to see more of this discontent coming out of people, particularly the spouses and partners who aren't so into it and have this technology sort of placed upon them, maybe against their will, or at least not at their desire. And so I think curved TV is obviously one sort of extreme example of that, but I think it's a great point that we will presumably continue to see more of this. So once again, Seth, I want to thank you. I didn't get a chance to say that. Thank you for your work in getting the live stream set up and the live chat. I know that was not easy. And like I said, if that had been me tasked with that, I don't think it would have happened.
No worries. Maybe we'll start on time next week.
Hey, we're all about incremental improvement here.
Right. Well, I've saved the settings this time, so
yeah. So anyways, let's tie it back. We do have our interview here with Chris Pinder, and we want to bring that back in here to actually that'll close out our show. And again, this is sort of bookending our HDBaseT conversation. And Seth, I'm glad you were able to chat with him. Chris is certainly a really smart guy when it comes to HDMI and all of these technologies. HDBaseT surrounding media distribution are very, very complicated and involved. And I really, actually, as we're recording here, I'll be honest, I haven't heard the conversation, so I look forward to hearing it myself as well.
Yeah, he's got a couple of really cool things going on at ISE, so you're going to have to stop by the booth and take a look at them. One of them really caught my eye, or caught my ear, I guess. He's got this HDBaseT, Balun or Matrix. Not sure which one. I think it's a Matrix. That will do more than the 10.2 gigabit per second limit that we hear so much about.
Over 18.2, I believe is the big one, if that's what you're referring to 4K, 60 hertz, 444 color space, I believe is like just north of 18 gigabits per second.
Well, they figured out a way to kind of trick things a little bit, and maybe use a little bit of compression that your eye will never notice, and fit one of those pictures on a single Cat 5, which is pretty huge if you ask me. I think that's
Very
going to be
cool.
an interesting thing.
That's the holy grail.
Yep. So I'll let him tell the story a little bit better, and we'll just jump into the interview right now. So here's Chris Pinder of HD Anywhere. Chris, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Seth. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So there's this strange little HDBaseT issue that's going around the internets these days, and I tweeted out a conversation that I saw about it. But here's what I get out of it, and then maybe you can kind of clean up the technical aspects of it, and maybe tell us how big of a deal this is. Evidently, there are HDMI matrices that use HDBaseT technology to send HDMI video signals from the matrix out to the television screens. If the TVs that are connected are Samsungs and they perform a particular update, like an auto update, and this happens from time to time, so if something's connected to the internet, it does get updated. This auto update has the potential of not being compatible with the HDBaseT equipment. Is that what I'm getting out of this? Is that correct?
Well, it has the potential to not be compatible with certain HDBaseT equipment. And we've got to remember that matrices and extenders that use HDBaseT technology don't just have one chip in them. Often they have many chips in them, from HDMI chipsets, switching chipsets, before they get to the HDBaseT chipset. And it's this combination of chips and the speed of communication between those chips that we believe is created this issue with Samsung, some models of Samsung TVs with some HDBaseT products.
So it's not completely widespread. It's not something that's affecting all Samsung TVs that have been updated with all HDBaseT product.
No. That was a sweeping statement, and just not true.
That's good to hear. Quite honestly, that's the best news that's come out of this so far.
Yeah, I mean, at what point do you? And we had this conversation in the office today. At what point do you go to DEFCON 1 and start announcing to the world that there's a problem with the most popular TV brand with your products?
Right.
Is it after 3 complaints? Is it after 5 complaints? Is it after 10 complaints? And I guess different companies have different thresholds for when they trigger DEFCON 1. So we were made aware of this potential issue early on, to the tail end of last week, and with a couple more incidents of it early this week. But we weren't panicking too much about it. We'd only had 3 complaints or support tickets that have come in related to
3. That seems incredibly low, quite honestly. That seems very insignificant for what I would for what this initially looked like it was going to be.
Well, I mean, Samsung is the most popular brand of TV in the UK by far, and at that point we had decided to wait for more incidences where it was a confirmed problem before we sort of raised the alarm. In the meantime, we had made direct contact with not just the HDBaseT Alliance, but Valens, who are the manufacturers of the HDBaseT chipsets. And it's really, they're the guys, if there was a problem, they would be getting phone call after phone call, email after email from all of the various manufacturers of products that utilize HDBaseT chips or Valens chips, of which there are,
right, not just HD Anywhere. This is just about any matrix that I can think of has this particular technology built into it. Any modern matrix, I would say, has the HDBaseT technology in it.
And when we contacted them, now who knows who's telling the truth, but they'd said to us they weren't aware of the issue. and that we were the first to contact them about it. That could be true, it could be false, it could be a tactic, it could be an alternative truth.
That's going around a lot these days.
Yeah. But so we weren't particularly, worried at this point. But then a proactive brand within the same category as us, which is totally within their rights, decided to put a tech bulletin out about the issue because perhaps they'd had more support tickets raised about it than we had and than others, and felt like it was an important thing to put a tech bulletin out.
Right.
But they made quite a sweeping statement within that, sort of roping in other brands and saying that it was an issue between Samsung and HDBaseT, the technology, and that was, in hindsight, somewhat of a sweeping statement, as we say, and not 100% true, because if we look at our own range of products, we only have 2 SKUs affected by this issue out of 8 or 10 that use HDBaseT technology, and we think that we understand the reasoning behind the issue, and it's down. And another brand in the UK called Pulsate concurs with the same analysis of the issue, which is a HDCP timing, a handshake issue. And it could potentially be fixed by Samsung software, it could be fixed by iSoftware, but it only affects a couple of our devices. And this is really a good example of where a social media firestorm has led to an even bigger article on CE Pro and a bit of panic, mass hysteria, and
well, I'll take a little responsibility in there too. I did tweet out that particular tech bulletin, just because it kind of seemed interesting to see that happen and say, okay, let's connect the dots here. If this is going to be a problem, let's get the message out before, let's be proactive with it and not try and clean up a huge mess later on. But I think the reason you're seeing only 3 instances of this, and it's probably not that big of a deal, is that most integrators are already turning off that auto update feature. That's typically not something you see on in a video distribution system. There's really not much advantage to having that feature. There's not much advantage to utilizing auto update to update apps and stuff on the TV in a system that has an HDMI matrix, because you're probably using other devices to do what those apps are going to do anyway. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, but integrators out there, turn off auto update. It's probably a good idea just to be on the safe side. But I'm glad to hear from you, a resident expert, that this isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, it will be a bigger deal for. It's a subjective term to how big a deal it is for if you're a brand that has this problem with all their products. It's a big deal, especially if you're selling lots of products in the UK and the most popular TV brand is Samsung. But from what we can find out, the new evidence that's come to light over the hours and the past few hours is that it does seem to be specific to the UK. So.
Good.
Americans, you've got enough on your plate to worry about right now. Samsung compatibility issues with HDBaseT is not one of them. But I think what we should really take from it is just how powerful social media can be. With good intentions, I have no doubt that the idea was to create a preemptive. Yeah, well, not strike's the wrong word, but preemptive action from people to try and mitigate the problem, and that's great. The intention behind what happened on social media was good, but perhaps, and we've taken these measures at work today at the office, is that we put in place some rules before we kind of ramp things up to DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2, DEFCON 3. And, we need more evidence is often required. I would encourage brands to work closer together, put aside their competitive differences, have a phone call between tech departments. Are you seeing this issue that we're seeing? Yes, no. Before putting out or mentioning other brand names would be advised.
Right. Yeah, because you did get squirreled into that particular message, and that was from a different company. So yeah, I completely agree with you there, and I would like to see more talking between brands, especially when it comes down to technical issues that in the custom industry we sell very little product compared to someone like Samsung, and we have very little input into what Samsung pushes out on their firmware. But it would be nice to see more communication happen there. So, Chris, I know we kind of jumped into the conversation here. Tell us a little bit about HD Anywhere, and are you at ISE this next week?
We're at ISE next week. We're in Hall 5, where most of the HDBaseT brands are. We're on a booth directly opposite the HDBaseT booth. So I'm sure we'll all be discussing.
It'll be
but
be a good topic.
Yeah, and what new products are we showing off? We've integrated an IP2IR controller, kind of like a global cache box, but built into our matrix now. So you can use our app to control source and display devices connected to the matrix. That's our key innovation for the show.
Very cool.
We have an extender which uses something that we call tipping point compression to deliver 18 gigabits content over HDBaseT, which is capped at 10. So we use a light compression to squeeze the signal down with very minimal impact on the picture. And we'll be demonstrating 2 screens side by side, one using tipping point compression, one without, to see if people can tell which one is which.
That's really cool technology, because HDBaseT has been kind of limited to that 10 gigabits per second number. So that should be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, also there's hardly any content, if any at all, publicly available to people that really hits that 17.9 gigabits threshold or headline figure. Most kind of hovers a couple of gig over the 10 gigabit limit of HDBaseT. So if you think about it, if you only have to compress that small amount, that couple of gig over, that 20% that's bubbled over the threshold, then you can achieve some very, very light compression with very minimal impact on the picture quality. So yeah, and you know what? Compression is one of those words that strikes fear in the heart of purists. So we're not asking them to just take our press releases and our words at face value. We're going to be showing it live and letting people's eyes make the decision for them.
Very cool. Yeah, well, I won't be there, but Jason will actually be out there this year, so we'll have to send him by the booth to take a look.
Cool.
Chris, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to sit down and chat with us here on HomeTech. If somebody wants to check out HD Anywhere or reach out to you directly, what's the best way to do that?
Well, it's very, very simple. You just need to go to HDanywhere.com.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Chris.
Thanks, Seth.